His hands were gentle when he held mine across the restaurant table. "You're safe with me," David whispered, those blue eyes promising everything I'd been searching for. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. I didn't know I was staring into the face of my own destruction, a predator who'd perfected the art of camouflage. By the time I saw the wolf beneath the sheep's clothing, I'd already handed him the keys to my house, my bank accounts, and something far more dangerous: my trust. They say love is blind. They don't tell you that abuse disguises itself as devotion until you're too trapped to escape. The Arizona sun hit differently in Phoenix during late September. At 58, Margaret Chen had lived in the Valley of the Sun long enough to recognize when summer finally loosened its strangling grip. The thermometer still climbed to 95 by afternoon, but the mornings carried a whisper of mercy, a hint that October would bring relief. She stood in the produce section of the Whole Foods on Camelback Road, weighing 2 avocados in her palm. 3 years since the divorce. 3 years of rebuilding a life she thought had been set in stone. Her reflection in the polished metal of the refrigerated case showed a woman who'd learned to dress for herself again. Linen pants in sage green, a white cotton blouse, silver earrings her daughter had given her for her last birthday. Those won't be ripe until Thursday. The voice came from her left. Deep, warm, with a slight Texas drawl that softened the consonants. Margaret turned to find a man about her age, maybe 60, with silver hair combed back and eyes the color of the desert sky. He wore pressed khakis and a crisp blue shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His smile reached those blue eyes. Thursday? Margaret looked at the avocados again. Trust me, I've lived here 30 years. These beauties need 3 more days. He reached past her, politely, not invasively, and selected 2 different ones. These, though, these are perfect for tonight. Margaret took them, pressing gently. He was right. She smiled despite herself. You know your avocados. David Morrison. He extended his hand. Former Army, former businessman, current cooking enthusiast who takes his guacamole very seriously. His handshake was firm, but not aggressive. Margaret noticed his nails were clean, trimmed. A man who took care of himself. Margaret Chen, former marketing director, current freelance consultant, amateur gardener who apparently doesn't know her avocados. David laughed, a genuine sound that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. Well, Margaret Chen, if you're making guacamole, might I suggest the cilantro over by the organic section? They got a fresh shipment this morning. They talked for 20 minutes in that grocery store. Margaret learned he was widowed 4 years ago, that he had 2 grown sons in California, that he volunteered at the Veterans Center downtown twice a week. He learned she had a daughter in Seattle, that she'd left her corporate job to work for herself, that she was trying to grow tomatoes in her backyard despite the Phoenix heat. When they parted, he asked for her number. She gave it. The first date was coffee at Le Grand Orange on Thursday afternoon. David arrived 10 minutes early. He asked questions and listened to the answers. He didn't interrupt. He didn't check his phone. When Margaret mentioned her love of hiking, his face lit up. Camelback Mountain at sunrise. Best view in the city. Have you done the Echo Canyon Trail? Not in years, Margaret admitted. Would you like to? This Saturday? She said yes before she could overthink it. Saturday morning came cool and clear, the kind of Phoenix dawn that reminded people why they endured the summer. They met in the parking lot at 5:45 a.m. David brought water bottles, trail mix, and a first aid kit. Always prepared, he said with that easy smile. Old army habits. The climb was challenging but exhilarating. David matched her pace, never rushing, offering a steady hand over the steeper sections without being condescending. At the summit, they sat on the red rocks and watched the city wake up below them, a sprawl of terracotta roofs and palm trees stretching toward the distant mountains. "This is my church," David said quietly. "Up here, everything makes sense." Margaret felt something shift in her chest, a cautious hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was still room in her life for this. Over the next 6 weeks, David became a constant presence. Dinners at Durant's, the old-school steakhouse downtown, movies at the Harkins in Scottsdale, long drives out to Sedona to see the Red Rocks. He sent good morning texts. He remembered she took her coffee with oat milk. He brought flowers, not roses, but desert wildflowers he picked himself on his morning walks. "You're too good to be true," Margaret's friend Linda said over lunch at the stockyards. Linda had known her for 15 years, had held her hand through the divorce. "Just be careful, okay? Take it slow." "I am being careful," Margaret insisted. But she wasn't. She was falling, fast. David's apartment in the Arcadia neighborhood was immaculate. Everything had its place. His bookshelves were organized by genre, then alphabetically by author. His spice rack was labeled with a label maker. When Margaret commented on it, he laughed. "What can I say? Order helps me think clearly." It seemed charming, endearing even, a man who had his life together. At Thanksgiving, 2 months into their relationship, David asked to meet Margaret's daughter. "I know Sophia's flying in from Seattle. I'd love to take you both to dinner, my treat, anywhere she wants." Margaret's heart swelled. He was thinking long-term. He wanted to be part of her family. But Sophia, 28 and sharp as a tack, saw something Margaret didn't. Over dessert at Pizzeria Bianco, while David was in the restroom, she leaned close. "Mom, does he always order for you?" "What?" "At dinner, he ordered your appetizer, your wine. He didn't ask what you wanted." Margaret frowned. "He knows what I like. It's sweet." Sophia's expression tightened, but she didn't push. "Just keep your eyes open, okay?" Margaret dismissed it. Sophia didn't understand. This was different. David was different. By December, David had a key to her house in the Paradise Valley area. By January, he was spending 4 nights a week there. And by February, when he suggested Margaret give up her little freelance projects to focus on us, she barely hesitated. "You don't need the stress," he said, his hand gentle on her shoulder as they sat on her patio, watching the sun set over Camelback Mountain. "I make enough for both of us. Let me take care of you. You've worked hard enough." It sounded like love, like security, like everything she'd been missing. She said yes. That was the first chain, though she didn't know it yet. March in Phoenix brought the perfect weather. 75 degrees, cloudless skies, and the scent of orange blossoms from the citrus groves that still dotted the older neighborhoods. Margaret's garden exploded with life. The tomatoes she'd struggled with were finally thriving, their vines heavy with green fruit that would ripen red under the intense Arizona sun. David installed a new irrigation system for her. "Can't have you standing out here in the heat," he said, programming the timer with meticulous care. "This way, everything's automatic, efficient." Margaret thanked him with a kiss. She didn't mention that she actually enjoyed the meditative quality of hand watering, the quiet morning ritual with the hose and the birds. The changes were small at first, suggestions that felt like care. "That dress is beautiful, but the yellow washes you out in this Arizona light. The blue one, that's your color." Trust me. Margaret, honey, you left the kitchen light on again. Electricity isn't cheap. I know you're not used to thinking about these things, but we need to be more mindful. Did you really need to spend 3 hours at Linda's? I made dinner reservations. I wanted to surprise you. Each comment came wrapped in concern, in love, in the language of partnership. By April, Margaret had stopped wearing yellow. She double-checked every light switch. She started asking David's permission, though he never called it that, before making plans with friends. I just like to know where you are, he explained when she mentioned it. It's not about control, it's about caring. After Sarah died, his voice caught. Sarah, his late wife, the saint he'd lost to breast cancer. After Sarah died, I promised myself I'd never take anyone I love for granted again. I need to know you're safe. How could she argue with that? Linda noticed first. They were supposed to meet for their monthly book club at Changing Hands bookstore in Phoenix, but Margaret canceled at the last minute. Then she canceled again. The third time, Linda showed up at Margaret's house unannounced on a Tuesday afternoon. David answered the door. Is Margaret home? Linda asked, trying to keep her tone neutral. She's resting. The heat's been bothering her. David's smile was pleasant, but his body blocked the doorway. Can I give her a message? I'd rather talk to her myself. She's really not feeling well, Linda. Maybe another time. From inside, Margaret's voice. Linda? Is that Linda? David's jaw tightened microscopically, but he stepped aside. Margaret appeared, looking tired, thinner than Linda remembered. They sat in the living room. David brought iced tea without being asked, then settled into the chair across from them. He didn't leave. Linda tried. The book club really misses you. We're reading The Midnight Library this month. Your pick, remember? I know, I'm sorry. I've just been so busy with the house and… Margaret and I are planning a trip to San Diego. David interrupted smoothly. Early May. She needs a real vacation. Not just running around town exhausting herself with activities. Linda looked at Margaret. Margaret looked at her hands. After Linda left, David was quiet during dinner. His silence was worse than yelling would have been. Margaret could feel the disappointment radiating off him like heat from asphalt. Did I do something wrong? She finally asked. Wrong? No, sweetheart. Of course not. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I just thought we were on the same page about boundaries, about respecting our time together. But if you'd rather spend your afternoons with Linda than planning our future, that's not fair, isn't it? His voice stayed level, reasonable. I've given up my Thursday golf games for you. I rearranged my entire schedule. But when I ask for the same consideration, suddenly I'm the bad guy. Margaret felt her chest tighten. You're not the bad guy. I'm sorry. You're right. I should have told Linda I couldn't see her. The smile returned, warm again. That's my girl. We're a team, remember? You and me against the world. He kissed her forehead. She felt relief and something else, something she couldn't name yet. The San Diego trip never happened. In early May, David's back problems flared up. They needed to stay close to his doctor in Scottsdale. Margaret suggested they go anyway. She could drive, help him navigate. He'd looked at her with such hurt. You really want to risk my health just for a vacation? She dropped it. By June, the Phoenix heat was oppressive. 110, 115, 118 degrees. The city became an oven. Margaret's tomatoes withered despite the irrigation system. She stood in the garden at 6 a.m., the only tolerable hour, and felt tears she didn't understand. David found her there. What's wrong? I don't know. And she didn't. Everything should be perfect. She had a man who loved her, who wanted to take care of her. Why did she feel so empty? You're just not used to being cared for, David said gently, pulling her close. His shirt smelled like expensive cologne and fabric softener. Your ex trained you to do everything alone, but you're safe now. You can let go. Let me handle things. It sounded right. It felt wrong. Sophia called that week. Mom, I haven't heard from you in 3 weeks. Are you okay? Of course, honey. Just busy. Busy with what? You quit your freelance work. With David, with the house, with life. Mom. Sophia's voice carried an edge of worry. You sound different. Different how? Margaret wanted to argue, but David walked into the room. He didn't ask who she was talking to. He just looked at her, a question in his eyes. Sophia, honey, I need to go. I'll call you this weekend. She didn't call that weekend, or the next. David's control tightened like the Arizona heat, so gradually that Margaret didn't notice she was suffocating until she couldn't breathe. He managed her phone now. Too many spam calls, he'd explained, setting up the new password system. He managed her finances. Let me handle the boring stuff, sweetheart. You've earned a break. He managed her friends, her schedule, her choices. By July, Margaret rarely left the house except with David. The few times she tried, a solo trip to Target, a lunch with a former colleague. David's texts came rapid fire. Where are you? Why aren't you answering? I'm worried. Please respond. Are you safe? Did something happen? I'm calling the police if you don't answer right now. It was easier to stay home. You're the only one who understands me, David would say, holding her close on the nights when the air conditioning struggled against the desert heat. Everyone else gave up on me after Sarah died, but you stayed. Margaret had stayed, but somewhere in the staying, she'd stopped being herself. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, quiet, obedient, afraid, and the worst part? She still loved him. Or she loved the memory of who he'd been. The man with the avocados and the sunrise hikes. That man was gone, if he'd ever existed at all. August descended on Phoenix like a biblical plague. The thermometer hit 120 degrees. The news warned about burned palms on steering wheels, melted trash cans, and dogs with scorched paws. The city shimmered in heat waves that made the mountains disappear into hazy mirages. Inside Margaret's house, the temperature was different but no less suffocating. She'd made a mistake. A small one. She'd ordered groceries online without asking David first. When the Instacart driver delivered them, David's face had gone still. That terrible, quiet stillness that Margaret had learned was worse than any explosion. I can make my own grocery lists, he said calmly, unpacking the bags with mechanical precision. We discussed this. I know, but you were busy with your VA meeting, and we were out of milk. So you undermined my authority in my own home. It's not your home. It's mine. The words came out before she could stop them. True words. Dangerous words. David set down the carton of eggs with exaggerated care. When he looked at her, his eyes were ice. Your home, of course. How silly of me to think we were building something together. To think that after everything I've done for you. David, I didn't mean... After I've rearranged my entire life, given up my independence, my freedom, my friends who warned me that you'd never appreciate it. This was new. Your friends warned you about me? They said you were damaged, broken from your divorce, that you'd never be able to fully commit to another relationship. His voice was soft now, gentle, the knife sliding in quietly. But I defended you. I said you just needed patience, love, someone who wouldn't give up on you. Margaret felt dizzy. The kitchen walls seemed closer than they should be. I'm not. Of course you're not. He crossed to her, took her hands. His thumb rubbed circles on her wrist. You're just stressed. This heat makes everyone crazy. Why don't you go lie down? I'll finish putting things away. She went to the bedroom, lay on the bed, stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles overhead. Something was very, very wrong. That night, she couldn't sleep. While David snored beside her, Margaret slipped out of bed and went to the guest room where she'd stored her old laptop, the one from before, from when she'd had her own life. She opened it. The battery was dead. She found the charger in a drawer David had labeled electronics, obsolete. While it powered up, Margaret sat in the darkness and tried to remember who she'd been 8 months ago. The woman who'd hiked Camelback Mountain alone, who'd run her own consulting business, who'd raised a daughter and survived a difficult marriage and emerged stronger. Where had that woman gone? The laptop screen glowed. She opened the browser. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Then she typed, "Signs of emotional abuse." The articles loaded. She read with growing horror. Isolation from friends and family. Control over finances. Constant criticism disguised as concern. Gaslighting. Love bombing followed by devaluation. The cycle of abuse. Every paragraph described her life. The sun was rising when she finally closed the laptop. Pink and orange light spilled across the Superstition Mountains to the east. Phoenix waking up to another scorching day. Margaret had a choice to make. That morning, over coffee, David was cheerful. He'd made her favorite breakfast, scrambled eggs with chives from the garden that hadn't completely died. He kissed her temple. Sleep better? Yes, she lied. Good. I was thinking we should start planning our future more seriously. Maybe you should sell this house, move into my place. It makes more sense financially, and frankly, this neighborhood isn't as safe as it used to be. There it was, the next chain. I need to think about it, Margaret said carefully. David's expression shifted. Think about it? What's there to think about? We've been together almost a year. This is the natural next step. Unless... He set down his fork. Unless you're not as committed to this as you claim to be. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Margaret. But partnership requires sacrifice. I've sacrificed. Now it's your turn. She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. The weight on her chest made breathing difficult. David stood abruptly. I'm going for a drive. When I get back, maybe you'll have your priorities straight. He left. The house echoed with his absence. Margaret picked up her phone. It took 3 tries to dial because her hands were shaking. Linda, it's Margaret. Can you come over? Please? Linda arrived in 20 minutes. She took one look at Margaret's face and pulled her into a hug. Tell me everything. So Margaret did. All of it. The control, the isolation, the constant undermining disguised as care, the way she'd stopped recognizing herself. Linda listened without interruption. When Margaret finished, her friend's eyes were wet. Honey, you need to leave. Today. Now. Before he gets back. I can't. He'll what? Margaret, listen to yourself. You're terrified of a man who claims to love you. That's not love. That's prison. But maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm just... Stop. Linda gripped her shoulders. Stop making excuses for him. Would you want Sophia to stay with someone who treated her this way? The question hit like ice water. God, no. Never. Then why is it okay for you? Margaret didn't have an answer. Linda pulled out her phone. I'm calling my sister. She has a spare room in Tucson. You can stay there until you figure things out. She's expecting me to visit anyway. We'll say you're coming along. David tracks my location. Then leave your phone. I'll get you a burner. He'll know something's wrong. Good. Let him know. Let him sit with the discomfort for once. Margaret looked around her house. Her beautiful house that she'd bought with her own money after the divorce. That she'd filled with carefully chosen furniture and art and plants. Her sanctuary. When had it become a cage? Okay, she whispered. Okay. Help me pack. They moved quickly. Clothes, documents, laptop, medication. Linda swept the house with military efficiency while Margaret stood in the bedroom shaking. Do you have your passport? Birth certificate? Linda asked. In the safe, but David changed the combination. Linda's expression went hard. Where's the safe? Master closet. Linda disappeared. Margaret heard a crash, glass breaking. Linda returned holding a metal box. He installed a cheap one. The old screwdriver and hammer trick still works. Inside were Margaret's documents. Also, a folder of papers. Margaret opened it with numb fingers. Financial records, bank statements for accounts she didn't know existed, in her name, opened with her forged signature. That son of a... Linda breathed. Margaret's phone buzzed. David. On my way home. We need to talk. We have to go, Linda said. Now. They grabbed the bags. Linda loaded them into her car while Margaret stood in her entryway one last time, memorizing, mourning, the life she'd thought she was building, the life that had been a lie. Linda's hand on her elbow. Come on, honey. We can't be here when he gets back. They pulled out of the driveway just as David's silver Lexus turned onto the street. Margaret watched in the rearview mirror as he parked, as he got out of the car, as he looked at the empty driveway where her car usually sat. His face changed. Even from a distance, she could see the rage. Her phone exploded with texts, calls, voice messages. She turned it off with shaking hands. You did the right thing, Linda said as they merged onto I-10, heading east toward Tucson. The Phoenix skyline receded behind them, glass towers and palm trees and mountains shimmering in the August heat. Margaret didn't feel brave. She felt terrified. But she also felt something else, something she hadn't felt in months. She felt like herself again. Tucson was 115 degrees when they arrived, but it felt cooler than Phoenix. Maybe because Margaret could breathe again. Linda's sister, Patricia, was a retired nurse with a no-nonsense demeanor and a guest room painted lavender. She asked no questions, just pointed Margaret to the shower and handed her a cold glass of lemonade afterward. Stay as long as you need, Patricia said simply. Linda filled me in. You're safe here. Safe. Such a small word for such an enormous feeling. That first night, Margaret slept 14 hours. When she woke, disoriented, the sun was already high. Her phone, the new burner Linda had bought at a gas station, showed it was 11 a.m. She'd slept through the entire morning. Patricia was in the kitchen making lunch. Hungry? Margaret realized she was starving. Very. Over chicken salad sandwiches, Patricia explained the situation with clinical precision. You're in what we call the honeymoon withdrawal phase. Your body is going through chemical withdrawal from the stress hormones. You'll probably sleep a lot for the first few days. You might feel depressed, anxious. That's normal. Your brain is recalibrating. You've seen this before. 30 years in emergency nursing? More times than I can count. Patricia's eyes were kind but firm. The next few weeks are critical. He'll try everything to get you back. Promises, apologies, threats. Probably all three. You need to be ready. I am ready. But she wasn't. Not really. The first call came at 3 p.m. Margaret's old phone, which Linda had kept, rang continuously. 57 calls in 2 hours. The voicemails started loving. Margaret, sweetheart, I don't know what happened. Please come home. We can work this out. Then confused. I'm worried sick. Did someone do something to you? Are you being held against your will? Blink twice if you need help. Then angry. This is childish. After everything I've done for you, you run away like a coward? You owe me an explanation. Then threatening. I know you're with Linda. Tell her she's interfering in a relationship she doesn't understand. There could be legal consequences for that. Linda played them on speaker. Patricia listened with her arms crossed. Classic abuser playbook, Patricia said. Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. He's trying to make you the bad guy. Margaret felt sick. I should never have left him alone in my house. He has my keys, my alarm code. Already handled, Linda said. I called a locksmith friend. Your locks are being changed as we speak, and I filed a police report about the forged bank documents. You what? Financial fraud is a crime, Margaret. Those weren't joint accounts. They were in your name only, opened without your consent. That's identity theft. But I don't want to press charges. I just want him to leave me alone. Patricia leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. He's going to escalate. Right now, he's testing boundaries. When he realizes you're serious, he'll either crumble and move on, or he'll dig in. Based on everything you've told us, the control, the manipulation, the financial crimes, I'm betting he's a digger. She was right. Day 3, David showed up at Linda's house in Phoenix. Linda's Ring camera caught him pounding on the door at 2 a.m. I know she's in there. Margaret! Margaret! The neighbors called the police. David told them he was worried about his girlfriend who'd been acting erratically. The officers took a report but couldn't do anything. He hadn't technically committed a crime by knocking on a door. Day 5, he tried a different approach. Flowers delivered to Linda's house. To Patricia's house. He'd somehow found the address. To Sophia in Seattle, with a note. Your mother is very ill. She needs help. Please call me. Sophia called Margaret instead. Mom, what the hell is going on? Margaret explained. Everything. The control, the escape, the forged accounts. There was a long silence. Then, Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have pushed harder at Thanksgiving. I knew something was off. You tried to tell me. I didn't listen. Are you safe now? I think so. You think, or you know? Margaret looked at Patricia and Linda, who were watching from the kitchen doorway. I know. I have help. Good, because I'm flying down this weekend. This guy needs to understand you're not alone. Having Sophia there helped. Her daughter had inherited her father's lawyer brain and her mother's steel spine. She dealt with David's increasingly unhinged messages with cold precision. When he texted, I just want to talk. 5 minutes. That's all I ask. Sophia responded, any further contact will be documented for the restraining order we're filing. When he called Sophia's number directly, you don't understand. Your mother needs me. She's not well. Sophia's reply, my mother is an adult capable of making her own decisions. Respect them. The restraining order was filed on day 12. David was served at his apartment in Phoenix. According to the server, he took it calmly. Too calmly. That worries me, Patricia admitted. The calm ones can be the most dangerous. They found out how dangerous 3 days later. Margaret was watering Patricia's garden, actual garden work, with her hands in dirt and the sun on her face, when Linda's call came. You need to sit down. What happened? David gave an interview to a Phoenix TV station about you, about how you abandoned him when he was struggling with PTSD from his military service, how you stole money from joint accounts. Margaret's vision tunneled. That's not. The accounts were fraudulent. He forged. I know. Everyone who matters knows. But he's playing the sympathy card. Decorated veteran abandoned by ungrateful girlfriend. The station ate it up. Can they do that? Just air his lies? It's legal. Unethical, but legal. I've already contacted a lawyer. We're preparing a defamation suit. Margaret sat down hard on Patricia's patio. The Arizona sun beat down. In the distance, the Santa Catalina Mountains rose against an impossibly blue sky, beautiful and indifferent. Sophia emerged from the house. What's wrong? Margaret showed her the news clip Linda had sent. They watched David on screen, charming, wounded, sincere, talking about his late wife Sarah, his struggle with grief, how Margaret had been his hope for a new start, how she'd changed when her controlling friends got involved. That calculating bastard, Sophia breathed. He's trying to destroy your reputation. It's working. Margaret scrolled through the comments on the station's Facebook page, half sympathetic to David. Half calling Margaret a gold digger, a manipulator, worse. We fight back, Sophia said firmly. We tell your story, the real story. I can't relive it all in public. Then he wins. He gets to control the narrative. He gets to make you the villain. Patricia came outside. Sophia's right. Silence helps abusers. Speaking up helps victims. But Margaret wasn't ready. Not yet. The shame was too fresh. The fear too raw. That night, unable to sleep, she walked into Patricia's backyard. Tucson at 2 a.m. was quiet except for coyotes yipping in the desert. Margaret looked up at the stars, brilliantly clear away from city lights. Her phone buzzed, a number she didn't recognize. Against her better judgment, she answered, Margaret. David's voice, soft, broken. Please, I'm sorry. I never meant. The interview was a mistake. I was just so hurt, so angry. But I've been thinking, and I understand now. I pushed too hard. I see that. Can we just talk? Face to face? I need closure. Every instinct screamed danger. But part of her, the part that had loved him, that still remembered the man with the avocados, wanted to believe change was possible. I'll think about it, she heard herself say. Thank you. That's all I ask. Just think about it. I love you, Margaret. I never stopped loving you. She hung up, stood in the desert darkness, realized she was crying. Linda found her there 20 minutes later. What happened? He called, said he wants to talk, to apologize. Absolutely not. Maybe he's genuinely sorry. Maybe. Margaret Chen, listen to me. This is the Hoover, the vacuum. He's trying to suck you back in. It's textbook. The apology, the promise of change, the appeal to your compassion. It's manipulation. You don't know that. Yes, I do. And so do you. You just don't want to believe it yet. Linda was right. Margaret knew it. But knowing and accepting were different things. She went back inside, deleted the unknown number, blocked it. Then she made a decision that would change everything. She called the Phoenix TV station, asked to speak to their assignment desk. I have a story for you, about abuse, about manipulation, about the truth behind your veteran's heartbreak interview. Who is this? Margaret Chen, the ungrateful girlfriend, and I'm ready to talk. The interview aired on a Tuesday evening in late September, exactly 1 year after Margaret had first met David in that Phoenix grocery store. She watched it at Patricia's house, flanked by Linda and Sophia, her hands shaking so badly she spilled her tea. The reporter had been thorough. Bank documents showing the forged accounts, text message threads showing David's escalating control, Linda's testimony, even Sophia's recounting of the Thanksgiving dinner where red flags first appeared, and Margaret, calm, clear-eyed, honest. "I'm not here for revenge," she told the camera. "I'm here because silence protects abusers." And I refuse to be silent anymore. She detailed it all. The love bombing, the isolation, the gaslighting, the financial crimes. She showed the police reports, the restraining order, the evidence of a pattern. The reporter asked the hardest question. "Why did you stay so long?" Margaret had thought about this. Because abuse doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up in a monster mask on the first date. It shows up as care, concern, love. And by the time you realize you're trapped, you've lost yourself so completely that you don't remember you have the right to leave. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The TV station's Facebook page flooded with comments, but this time, most were supportive. Women sharing their own stories, men acknowledging they'd seen similar patterns, domestic violence advocates praising her courage. David's response came at 11 p.m. A statement through a lawyer. Mr. Morrison maintains that Ms. Chen's accusations are false and defamatory. He will be pursuing legal action. Let him, Margaret thought. She had the truth. The weeks that followed were difficult, but liberating. Margaret returned to Phoenix in October, when the heat finally broke and the city became livable again. Her house had been cleaned, locks changed, and Linda had hired a security company to install cameras. Excessive? Linda asked. No, Margaret said. Necessary. She started rebuilding. First, her consulting business. Her old clients welcomed her back. Word of mouth spread. Apparently, courage was good for business. Then, her friendships. Book club resumed. Hiking trips with Linda. Coffee dates with women from her old networking group who'd heard her story and wanted to help. And therapy. Weekly sessions with Dr. Rebecca Goldstein, who specialized in trauma recovery. "You're doing better than most," Dr. Goldstein told her after 2 months. "You're not blaming yourself." That's huge. "I blame myself sometimes," Margaret admitted, "for not seeing it sooner." "That's different from blaming yourself for his actions. He made choices. You made choices. His choices were about control. Yours were about survival." Sophia visited for Thanksgiving, a real one this time, with turkey and stuffing and no underlying tension. They cooked together in Margaret's kitchen, music playing, windows open to the perfect Phoenix November weather. "You seem lighter, Mom," Sophia said, peeling sweet potatoes. "I feel lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy and finally put it down." "Are you dating again?" Margaret laughed. "God, no. Not for a long time. Maybe never. And that's okay. I'd rather be alone and whole than partnered and broken." Christmas came. Linda threw a party. Margaret wore a red dress, bright, bold, unapologetic. Someone asked if she was seeing anyone. She smiled and said, "Yes, myself. We're very happy together." It became her standard line. A joke, yes, but also truth. David disappeared from her life as suddenly as he'd entered it. The legal threats never materialized, probably because his lawyer realized he had no case. The last Margaret heard, he'd moved to Las Vegas. Someone else's problem now. She felt a pang of sympathy for whoever fell for the avocado routine next. But she also sent an anonymous tip to a domestic abuse awareness website, detailing his patterns and his real name. A digital footprint that might help someone else someday. In January, exactly 1 year since she'd given up her consulting work at David's request, Margaret celebrated by taking on her biggest client yet. A Fortune 500 company needed a marketing overhaul. The project would take 6 months and pay enough to fully replace the money David had stolen. She signed the contract sitting on her patio, watching the Arizona sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. The desert was chilly in January, but she didn't mind. She was warm enough. February brought an unexpected invitation. The Arizona Coalition Against Domestic Violence wanted her to speak at their annual fundraising gala. "Your story resonated with so many people," the director explained. "We think you could help others find their courage." Margaret almost said no. She wasn't a public speaker. She wasn't an activist. She was just a woman who'd survived. But then she thought about the women who'd messaged her after the interview. The ones who said, "Thank you, I thought I was crazy. You helped me see I'm not." She said yes. The gala was in March at a hotel in Scottsdale. 200 people attended. Margaret stood at the podium in a navy dress, notes trembling in her hands. "A year ago," she began, "I thought I'd found love. Instead, I found a wolf in sheep's clothing. Today, I want to tell you how I found myself again." She spoke for 15 minutes, about the red flags she'd missed, about the shame that kept her silent, about the moment she chose to leave, about the hard work of rebuilding. When she finished, the room was silent. Then someone started clapping, then someone else, then everyone. A standing ovation that went on for 3 full minutes. Afterward, women approached her, shared their stories, asked for advice. Margaret listened to each one, offered what wisdom she had, and shared resources: therapists, shelters, legal aid. One woman, maybe 65, gripped her hand. "I've been with my husband 40 years. Everyone thinks we're perfect, but I'm dying inside. Your story, it gave me hope that it's not too late." "It's never too late," Margaret told her. "You're still breathing. That means you still have choices," the woman cried. Margaret gave her Dr. Goldstein's card. Driving home that night, Margaret took the long way through Phoenix, past the Whole Foods where she'd met David, past the hiking trail where they'd watched the sunrise, past his old apartment complex where someone else's lights glowed in the windows. She felt no regret, no longing, just a quiet peace. April brought wild poppies to the Arizona desert, brilliant orange against beige sand. Margaret hiked Camelback Mountain alone, early morning, before the heat. At the summit, she sat on the red rocks and looked out at the sprawling city below. A year ago, she'd been here with David. He'd called it his church. Now it was hers, her space, her victory. She thought about the woman she'd been, the one who'd just wanted someone to love, who'd believed that need made her weak. She knew better now. Wanting connection didn't make you weak, it made you human. What made you strong was knowing when to walk away from someone who weaponized that want. Margaret's phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." She laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Life kept moving forward, beautiful and messy and unpredictable. She replied, "Best news ever. I can't wait." Another text came in, from the coalition director. "We've had 3 women call asking for help because of your speech. You're saving lives." Margaret looked out at Phoenix waking up below her, the city of the sun, the city of second chances. Her city now, reclaimed and redefined. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living, thriving, growing. And if she ever did want another partner someday, maybe, possibly in the distant future, she knew exactly what to look for, and more importantly, what to run from. For now, though, she had herself, her daughter, her grandchild-to-be, her friends, her work, her city. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. She stood, brushed the red dust from her hiking pants, and started the descent. One careful step at a time, the same way she'd rebuilt her life. The same way anyone could if they just took that first step. Down the mountain, into the light, toward home.